at least you got one of the big 30 things about me.
Practice with olive oil.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Yeah, of course. I love your dress.
I know.
Thank you.
I love it. I honestly, I have no idea where it came from.
It was just in the
Literally, it was
closet.
in my
Like
closet
scalloped
today.
detail.
I know, that's what I like about it. It's very great. I was like, it had the tag still on it, and I'm sure it was that stuff. I'm sure it came from Target, but I don't even remember buying it. Can we do it on the app or do it on Facebook? Maybe a little 5-minute thing.
Yeah, I think I know Sean just told me like to, I guess do the rundown of like the evaluation.
First?
Um,
Probably should do it first.
okay.
It's fine. My thing won't take a whole 50 minutes. I do kind of wish this was up here so I'd have my notes, but. Hi.
I just wanted to ask if we were supposed to take those pamphlets.
Yes,
All right.
these are the evaluations, but feel free. I think they had them down here so that people would sit up front, but that's okay.
No worries.
It's quite all right.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
It's always in the back.
I like sitting up front. I know you do. No.
Yeah, I also
Usually
know
like to sit in the back. I like to sit up front so I can, nobody's in front of me distracting me. So. All right, it's 10 o'clock.
All right. So, I guess, yeah, well, let's get started. So, welcome everyone to the presentation of Guardianship, a Jury Not Needed, presented by Stephanie and Matthew or Matt Coleman?
Matthew.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, just basically what's in front of you is the evaluation. So just be sure to fill those out. Would be highly encouraged. So, yeah. So we're glad to have you with us.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Well, thanks everyone. Again, I'm Stephanie Coleman. I am the Autism Discipline Mentor at Kansas LEND. LEND, if you don't know about LEND, LEND stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities, hence the word LEND. I'm also an autism family educator throughout the state of Kansas, and I'm Matthew's mom. This is Matthew. Matthew, he's not excited to be here. He does not like to speak, but this is his story, so he needs to be here as well. Matthew is a videographer. His company is called Mystery Productions. He is a big Scooby-Doo fan, so he likes the Mystery Machine, so we came up with that name off of that. And a big Royals fan. As you can see from our family, we're all Royals fans. That's our dog, Murray.
Go Royals.
Murray rescued us during COVID, and I should have brought him here with us today because he is an integral part of our story.
Well, you didn't tell me to break up.
I didn't tell you to bring him, but anyways, so that's the three of us. This is just a disclaimer because I am going to be talking about guardianship and supported decision making, but I just want everybody to know this is our story. I also know that guardianship is needed for some individuals. I just don't believe that it's needed at the level that we are seeing here in the state of Kansas right now. So that's why I'm sharing my story. So there's something do not get saved on here. I also want to say I am not an attorney. So if you have more questions about guardianships, I would encourage you to seek out a guardianship attorney who specializes in that if you have specific questions. I can answer as much as I can, but this isn't legal advice, so I want to share that too. A little bit about us, family background. I am a single mom. I've been a single mom since the day Matthew was born. I'm a former corporate recruiter and that didn't know what she didn't know. And I was always behind the proverbial 8-ball. We were always finding out about support, services, resources, everything after years sometimes after we needed it. And so I made a midlife career change in 2015. I left corporate recruiting. In 2016, I was looking for a job in the disability community, and I kept being told, you have no experience. You have no experience. I'm like, at that point, I had 21 years of hands-on experience. That pretty much equals a PhD in some areas. But I didn't know what I didn't know, or have that experience. And so in 2016, the beginning of that summer, I'm like, well, I'm gonna spend one more summer by the pool, and I will go back to recruiting if I don't find anything in September. In August of 2016, I was with, Matthew had a psychology appointment, and his psychologist said, why aren't you advocating and helping other families advocate the way you advocate for Matthew? And I'm like, that's what I want to do, and nobody will hire me. So he told me about Lend, and I became a Lend trainee 2 weeks later. I had no idea what I was doing. Here I am. I was, I can't believe I'm saying this, but in my 40s, mid-40s, and I was going back to college. And not only was I going back to college, but I was going back to colleges with postdoc fellows and graduate students who were young enough to be my child. And I'm just like, oh, this was really, really hard for me and stressful for me. And so I realized a weekend that what I was there for is to bring the lens of lived experience, bring what they were learning in Lend alive. And so I was blessed to be able to be a Lend trainee for a year and learn a lot. And when at the end of my year, the person who was previously in my position I knew was going to be retiring, and she told me she was ready to retire, and so I was joining the Lend team, and that's where I am now. A little bit about Matthew. Matthew's an only child, which is great for me because I only have one. But at the same time, it's not great because he doesn't have those siblings, especially when we're sitting here thinking about disabilities and future planning and who does he have to support him when I'm gone. And that scares the crap out of me. It literally does. Just talking about it gives me chills. And it worries me. It scares me. So I have to be ready. I have to be planning. And it can be very scary it can be scary for any family, right? But single parent too, with an only child, it is a little bit more, level of stress goes up a little bit. Matthew is a college graduate. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Ozarks. The University of Ozarks, just to be clear, can be confused sometimes with the College of the Ozarks. College of the Ozarks, I look at it as alphabet. College of the Ozarks is at the top of the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. The university is at the bottom of the Ozarks in Arkansas. But they have an amazing autism program there to support individuals who want to go through and get a college degree. I'm a big proponent of that, and I share as much information about their program as I can. As I said, he's a videographer. His all-time goal is to become a Royals cameraman. He loves his Royals and he wants to be a cameraman. When he was little, he wanted to be a Royals pitcher. We realized early that, you know, baseball just wasn't exactly his sport. He can play it for fun, not professionally. But what can he still do and be a part of the team that he wants to be a part of? And there was one summer, there was a Tech Connect program between Johnson County Community College and Skills to Succeed. They're no longer around, but they were a day service program, and they did a 2-week program, and then they did an advancement, and that's where he fell in love with the camera. So we're like, oh, this is the way we can do this. So he went on, did go to college. He's got his degree in communications, radio, television, and his minors are theater and health, which he'll never do anything with that. But he is a Special Olympic athlete, and he's a licensed driver. He did not become a licensed driver until the age of 21. At 16, he wanted that driver's license. Really, I think he just wanted something with his picture on it, because he got his permit and then never wanted to practice driving, which was fine with me. He wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for it. But at 21, he did decide that he was ready to do that, and on his own, he went and he got the information he needed to take the test. He studied, he took the test, he got his permit, he went to driving school because I didn't want to do it. I still to this day don't like driving with him, but he's been a licensed driver for 8 years now. And he loves telling me how to drive, who's been driving for almost 40 years. That's always fun. I'm sure you all can relate a little bit. So guardianship, that's what we're here to talk about. How it happened. Matthew went to a Shawnee Mission School. I'm not going to point out which one, but it was the Shawnee Mission School teams. And his IEP team approached me his junior year in high school and said, next year, you won't be invited to the IEP meeting and we don't have to share information with you. And I'm like, excuse me, what? What I forgot to say is I'm kind of a mama bear too. So when you're telling me that I'm not going to participate in my son's education and I'm not going to be involved and informed, that's not going to happen. And they said, unless you get guardianship. And I didn't know anything about guardianship. I didn't know anything about anything at that point. So I'm like, okay, I need guardianship. And we did go to start the guardianship process. What we did find out later is that with a signed release of information by him at the age of 18, I still would have been invited to IEP meetings, which he could have invited me anyways. And with the release of information, you're shaking your head, you know this. With the release of information, you can be informed on anything you need to know about school. So that was frustrating for me because I found out, as I say a lot, behind the proverbial 8 ball. It was after the fact, after we spent thousands of dollars getting guardianship. And so we did. We went to court to get guardianship. Because I am a single mom, I had my mother be a co-guardian with me because if something happened to me, he's very close in his relationship to my parents, his Mimi and Papa. So I wanted to make sure that both of us could make decisions or do what needed to be done in case one of us left. So we went to the court. I had to pay for an attorney for myself. I also had to pay for an attorney for Matthew. They also receive an attorney. The attorney spends 1 hour before the court hearing with them to talk to them for a little bit and then goes in and supports them. And I'm just like, thinking back on it now, why? Why didn't I ask more questions at the time? But I didn't. But at that court hearing, I said, no, he is not intelligent enough to make any decisions on his own. And they gave me guardianship. What I didn't know, too, is that once you receive guardianship, they're not yours. They're a ward of the state. They're the state's child now, right? And so the state and the judge is just allowing me to have the opportunity on legal record to make decisions for Matthew at that point. I could make any decisions for him. I could make the decisions and take away rights. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I could take away his right to vote, to marriage, to do whatever he wanted to do. I could take that right away from him. I did want to make sure at that time, guardianships are different levels, and I did say, he's been voting with me since day one, the first time. So he wanted to vote, so I wanted to make sure his voting rights were intact. So I allowed, made sure that was there in his any other rights. But what I didn't learn until later is that, again, like I said, he's the ward of the state. If something happened to me and something happened to my mom, let's say we both were in a car accident together, we were lost, in my will I could say, okay, Papa's going to be his next guardian, my brother's going to be the next, and maybe my friend Mallory would be my third choice down the line. And let's say, God forbid, something happened to all three of them. Then they could make Maria his guardian. And Maria doesn't have to follow what I have set up in my will. She doesn't have to follow and make the same choices that I made for him. So Maria could say, oh, well, now I'm your guardian. No, you're not going to go to Disney once a year on a vacation for yourself. You're not going to see your girlfriend. You're not going to, she gets to make the decisions. And because she's his guardian, who would be there speaking up for him, saying, hey, what Maria's doing isn't right. We need to go back and go to the court and make a change in guardianship. Who knows? That may not happen. And so for the rest of his life, his rights could have been squashed, for better words. One of the things I learned from a friend of mine who's an attorney in Missouri who had a client down in Springfield. The client, she's a young woman with Down syndrome. She was probably in her 30s, late 30s. Both of her parents did pass away. Her oldest brother became her guardian. He put her in a nursing home, took her money, and then told the nursing home that the other 6 siblings were not allowed to visit her. And they had to abide by it. That he is her legal guardian. They had to do that. And he took all the money the parents had put aside for it and everything. And my friend went to court and was able to get her rights back. With the support of her sisters and everything, they did get that individual's rights back. But I've heard stories after stories like this, and horror stories. And I didn't know any of this when I was told about guardianship. I knew none of it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Again, I have all these things set up and ready to go, and someone could just, take that away. So anyways, and this isn't this was over, so we originally received guardianship in 2013 was the year that we attained guardianship. And so I had learned, especially through my experiences at Lend and beyond, that more and more about this and why we shouldn't do this. So supported decision-making. Has everybody heard of supported decision-making? No. Supported decision-making is what every single one of us in this room does. Who buys a house without talking to somebody, thinking it over, possibly your spouse or somebody else, or buys a car, or goes and sees a doctor and doesn't get support making a big decision in your life? Do any of you? No. You have support. Supported decision making is what we all do. We just don't call it supported decision making. We call it life and making decisions. But individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or all disabilities, individuals are told, well, this is supported decision making. It's life. But we call it supported decision making. In Kansas, we have a horrendous number of individuals who go from high school to guardianship. It's just on this track. And we need to change that in the state of Kansas. Not in this legislative session, but in the 6 previous years, advocates have submitted bills in Topeka to pass for supported decision making law. And basically that would mean is before someone automatically gets guardianship, ask the questions. Could they practice supported decision making? And there are ways to set it up so it's more official than just, as I call it, life. It was so close to passing last year, and then the Bankers Association got involved and said, no, we don't like something about the verbiage, and they wanted it changed, so that killed the bill. And that's really disappointing because, again, judges, lawyers, this is their thing, they specialize in guardianship, so that's what they're doing. And I don't want to say anything negative about any attorney that it's malicious or anything else like that. I don't want to ever say that. But I don't think they're telling families, have you considered supported decision making? Have you practiced supported decision making yet? And so we need to do a better job as society. I present to medical students and to family med residents, and I say to them, you have the perfect opportunity when they start as a young age to let them know about supported decision making. We have been practicing supported decision making his whole life. When he was 2 years old and I asked him, which video do you want to watch, Winnie the Pooh or Mickey Mouse? That's supported decision making. Do you want to wear the green shirt with a collar or the red t-shirt? These are all supported decision making questions, and we're all using those from the get-go. And so we really need to help families understand that they've been practicing supported decision making their whole lives. And so that at 18, when someone suggests, hey, you need guardianship of Matthew, why? He's making decisions on his own. We practice that. We don't need to do that. So, we've already been using it. While I knew, away at college. So when he went away to college, I was nervous. Like, okay, making good decisions. He made a lot of bad decisions at college, but he's made a lot of good decisions too. He found his village. He found his support. There he had an education advocate and an autism advocate, and he made friends on campus. When he didn't have somebody, he also had my parents were very much closer to him than I was, so he could go, they could come up if needed him, and then he could text me when he needed me. He rarely texted me. But what 19-year-old kid, he wasn't 19 at the time, he was older, but what 19, 18-year-old kid goes to college and makes only good decisions? Did you make good decisions about college? No. So, we all deserve the right to make bad decisions. How many here have made bad decisions? How many have made them multiple times? I make them all the time. Yeah. The other day I wore heels, and that's why I'm wearing sneakers today, because it was a horrible decision to wear heels the other day. My feet hurt, so. But away at college, so I was starting to think, okay, we are going to start the process of removal of guardianship, because he's making these decisions. on his own. And technically, we were supposed to make sure, get the court's permission to even allow him to go out of state to go to college. I didn't know that. It doesn't matter now. But you have to ask permission to get a lot of this stuff done when everything happened. So, again, reasons to remove. He didn't need it, like I said. He doesn't need constraints and limits. He does. He needs constraints and limits, but he needs to make those and decide what those are for himself. He and I can talk about those decisions, and we do that. Big decisions, where he wants to go, like last night, his job coaching, the people who are supposed to be helping him look for a job came with a opportunity for him, and we talked about it, and it's not a good opportunity for him because they want him to find his own backup, and I'm like, no, like that's not going to happen. So, but we had that conversation so that he could understand why that wasn't a good choice for him. But these are things what I'm talking about, and he does. He asks, a lot of time he asks me questions that he shouldn't need help making those decisions on. It's like, really, come on, we've made these decisions before. You can do this all on your own. So, the removal process is not easy. Our story is going to be very unique. I mentioned the woman in Springfield that was in a nursing home. That took over like 2 years to get that removal process done. But you've gone to the court now and you've said your child is incompetent, they can't make any decisions for themselves, and now you're having to go back to that court and say, I was just kidding, they really can make decisions and we want to restore his rights. You have to prove why their rights should be restored. So you have to request removal, you have to go back to a court hearing, you have to present your case, you have to submit letters of support. Sometimes you need an attorney, which are going to be more costs, in a couple of $1,000s. My case was different. During guardianship, you have to fill out an annual report every year. And I knew while he was away at college that we were going to be, when he graduated, this would show how he made those right decisions, and that we would be asking to remove guardianship when he got home from college. And so I started in the annual report saying he's doing good, making decisions. We don't think this is going to be needed. The last year in 2023, I sent it in. I didn't send it in. They're like, "Where's your annual report?" And I'm like, "Oh, here it is." And I said it should be removed. And the judge's assistant reached out and said, do you want to set a hearing? And I'm like, yes, please, let's set a hearing. And so we did. I got letters of support from his medical doctor and his psychologist, who both supported the removal. And we literally had a 15-minute Zoom meeting, and he said, I shared all the information with him, and he said, well, I tend to agree, and he removed guardianship. That was very easy for us. I don't know how that happened. Everybody says that's very unique. I'm very lucky. I don't know. In this supported decision-making process, we have other people in our lives. We are blessed to have a doctor. When I needed to see a new doctor, I found a resident, and I said to her, by the way, do you want to learn more about autism? And she said, sure. And so she became Matthew's doctor, and then she said, oh, by the way, when I'm done, I'm going into the hospital and I won't see patients anymore. I'm like, no, you can't do that to me. And so she got special permission to keep a couple of us. So Matthew can text her when he needs something and ask those questions. He can do it in the moment versus having to make an appointment and wait. So it's really nice. He still has his Mimi and papa that support him. What else was I going to talk about on the removal process? There are organizations. Oh, I know what I was going to share. Lend is housed in the Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics Department at Lend, or at KU Medical Center, where the Autism Evaluation Clinic is. And a lot of times our doctors and our psychologists get letters of requests from attorneys that ask for support for guardianship. And Dr. Ellerbeck, she's since retired, but she would always reach out to me and say, can you talk to this family about supported decision making? I really don't agree that this individual needs guardianship. And so I would reach out to the family, and they've never heard of supported decision making before. So we have to do a better job getting it out there. We have to do a better job of getting those families self-confidence and support from the get-go in their and belief in their children, that so when 18 comes up, they're going to say, no, we don't need it. Now again, I fully admit that there are going to be individuals who need guardianship, and I support that. But I tell all families that I speak to, they're like, oh, well, we already do this. And I'm like, well, then just, keep on keeping on. But in 3 years, if you decide, you know what, he's really making some really bad decisions and that's not going to work, then go after guardianship. Go ask for guardianship. A lot of people will do guardianship because they think that they'll keep their kids out of trouble. That is not the case. I literally had a family, I do a session called Parents Night Out for our Girls Night Out program. And the last time I did it, I had a mom who was told by an attorney that if her daughter does anything wrong, having a guardian will keep her out of trouble. No. If your child steals, there are going to be consequences. You will be able to be in the room when they talk to your child, but you will not, the judge won't say, oh, because you have guardianship and autism, there aren't going to be consequences. There absolutely are going to be consequences. If somebody murders somebody, there's absolutely going to be consequences. And it's really disappointing to hear that they said that to a family, that, oh, you don't have to worry about, I think somebody said their child stole something and they were worried, and I'm just like, you're not, like, the judge will probably take into consideration on those smaller little things that there's autism involved or another disability, but that's not going to keep your child from consequences. And honestly, do you want that? Do you want a child that's sheltered from consequences? Because again, one day we're not going to be here, and we need to know that our children don't just do whatever they want and believe that consequences aren't going to be part of that. So that is it. We have a short story. What questions? Yeah?
Are you familiar with partial guardianship?
Limited guardianship.
Limited, okay.
Yeah, there is limited guardianship, but again, it's retaining their rights of marriage, voting rights, driving. There's not, like, you can either have full rights taken away or they can have limited guardianship. Using supported decision making, the better ways of doing some things is using, like, power of attorney. You can do and you don't need guardianship. You can do, like, Matthew can sign off on power of attorney for me for financial purposes, or a healthcare proxy. Just as our families and our parents are aging, I had my parents here and they gave me healthcare proxies and power of attorneys. And I got to help them make their decisions through that.
So are they still a guardian of this state then, if it's the limited or partial?
Yes. Mhm.
Like in all areas or just some areas?
Again, that's a little over my head. That would be Disability Rights Center of Kansas does a great job has some training information on guardianship. They will also support families and they will support families up until the child is 18, and then they'll help the individual. So what Matthew could do is go to the Disability Rights Center and say, can you help me write up a power of attorney for my mom? And they'll do that at no cost. Not very well known, but they could do that. I'm sorry.
What was it called again?
Disability Rights Center of Kansas. And they help individuals stay out of, guardianship. They could possibly help families get out of guardianship if they want it as well. Yes.
I actually have 2 questions.
Sure.
So you said that when you went back to repeal the guardianship,
Uh-huh.
you had to provide like a letter from a medical
Uh-huh.
doctor. When you're asking for guardianship, do you have
Yes.
you also have to provide a letter?
Yeah, they're going to
saying
want to
that
see
you did?
support. Like they'll ask medical, like the attorney will reach out to your medical doctor, your psychologist, anything that can support the reason to having
So
guardianship.
how do you get the doctor to go back on what they said? Do you have to just prove it like through you said through the annual assessments, or how do you get the doctor to go back?
Well, we had a different doctor, so
we had
that at that time, yeah. I mean, he was at that time he had a pediatric doctor, and he's an adult doctor. And she put in that letter that she helps him make those medical decisions. Like he asks good questions at his doctor's office. Like, so, if it's the same doctor, because I know a lot of people have family practitioners or whatnot, talk to that doctor and say, Matthew has been making decisions on his own. I've been thinking about this. Start having that conversation. And most doctors, they really should support that and what's in their best interest. No, go ahead.
What if the person who has had their rights taken away, they have guardian now, what if they don't have any family? What if they just have advocates in their life? Like the agency came in and took over guardianship. What if they have, and the person is saying, I don't want a guardian.
Yeah.
But if they don't have any family left, they just have advocates. How does an advocate help them?
So that's what the bill of supported decision making was supposed to be about, is having, like, it's not technically, it wouldn't be technically legal, but like a supported decision making agreement that an individual, they can choose. Do they want their friends? They may say, like, okay, so Mallory and Maria are friends of mine, right? I can say, well, Maria is a psychologist, so I'm going to use Maria for my healthcare decisions, right? So I'm going to ask Maria, will you be my partner in helping me when I need to make decisions about healthcare? She's going to say yes. Now, I don't believe I'm going to say this, but Mallory here, I'm going to say, Mallory, will you help me make good financial decisions? And she's going to say, sure, you want me? No, I'm just kidding. She makes good decisions. Don't listen to me. But, I could have my friends do this. And there's an agreement. And this is where the Bankers Association probably is really interested in this and saying, well, who's Mallory? Like, why is Mallory getting on Stephanie's bank accounts? Like, is Mallory going to go in and drain her account, right? There's always that. But that's, even for us, there's always those chances, right? But you can still have, like, if this person's still receives SSI, Social Security, they can have, what is it called? Rep payee. You can have rep payees that, there's some companies that do that, but, the individual, it's tough to making those decisions. I would say, in my mind, bring the team together, all who support them. Ask that individual, like, what friends do you want that support you? you know, and have those team discussions. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions?
I also do have a question.
Sure.
A couple.
No, go ahead.
Very similar to yours, actually, so thank you for asking. So when, like, I guess back in high school, when they're on IEP and have education supports there in school, before, like, I know you said they essentially kind of coached you into, like, this is what you need to do. Are they also maybe providing any information about the supportive decision making?
At that time, they did not. This was back in 2013, so that was 10 years ago. And I did forget to say, I guess I didn't have my updated slides, but June 8th, 2023 is when Matthew had his guardianship removed, so almost 10 years to the day. But no, they don't. And that's another, like, if supported decision making passes through Topeka in the legislature, there will be a big push to educate teachers, SPED, attorneys, judges, everybody in that circle, advocates for them, all those supports. So no, they did not mention anything about supported decision making. And I'm going to be right honest with you too. I feel for special education teachers right now in the state of Kansas, and this number, I heard this number probably 6 or 7 years ago. In the state of Kansas, we had 900 waivers of regular ed teachers teaching special education. That means those teachers were also doing IEPs that they had never been trained to do. They were never, you know, like KU is one of the #1 SPED schools in the country, and we can't even keep them in our state. That's really sad. So at the same time, I feel sorry for, I feel betrayed. I won't lie about that. But at the same time, I feel sorry for them because was that teacher equipped? Was that IEP team equipped to really share? You know, they've been told about guardianship, so that's all they know. They didn't know about supported decision making and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. And so technically by law, even now, since nothing's passed, can they even provide that information?
Of course they
Like just openly?
Yeah, I mean, what they should have said was, you either need guardianship or Matthew needs to sign off on release of information. Because he's 18, he's a legal adult, I'm not, you know, I don't have the right to see his information unless he gives permission for me to see it. So they should be saying, hey, there's guardianship or you can do release of information. As long as Matthew's willing to sign off, which I know he would have been, because he doesn't like making decisions sometimes for himself. He doesn't like making phone calls, you know. So if he can get mom to do it, he will do it, right? I think most individuals, you know, it's the relationship you have with your child too, right? Like if you have an adversarial relationship with your child and your child doesn't trust you, no, they're not going to sign off on a release of information. They're going to be like, I finally have my freedom. I don't want mom and dad to have any access to my information anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My other question was about, my other question was
We've got plenty of
about,
time.
So with the documentation, either for guardianship or for appeal, or like the power of attorney, like power of attorney, all those things. Other than, you know, the supportive letters, like you had mentioned, and like having identified people support, or, you know, is there any kind of thing either from the school or like they have like a provider about like any kind of functionality scale? And I'm just thinking because currently I use like Happiness with Kids, but that's for also like mental health specifically. But I was just curious, like how, I guess what kind of if they were.
I mean, you could probably request a function.
And I
Or
well,
call FBA, something like that, Jay. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. They could. I mean, you could get whatever assessment you want to support one way or the other.
But they don't require it.
I don't remember that they did. I don't remember any assessments being done for that. Definitely not when we had it removed.
One less barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy. You know, the executive director of the Disability Rights Center, after I got Guardianship, he told me all about the horror stories and everything, and I'm like, that's, you know, like I dreaded the thought of what we had to do to get that removed, right? And how it became easy for us, I don't know. I got really lucky.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I was curious, like, if you could use a scale to be like, no, really, like,
Yeah.
they never required this in the first place, you know?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously they're, you know, you can say, hey, they're highly intelligent, they're, you know,
Absolutely.
it's probably on a case by case basis. Did you want to say something, Ryan?
Oh no.
Okay. Okay.
I was just gonna say, I don't really have a question, just wanted to let you know, similar situation in your life, same as mine. But I was lucky enough that nobody, I live in Lee Summit.
Okay.
I was lucky enough that nobody at the Lee Summit School District recommended,
Guardianship.
yeah. Because that just sounds awful, and I couldn't see myself, you know, trying to intervene for my son. I also worry what's gonna happen, but my sister's a psychologist. She's the one who recognized the autism, Asperger's at the time, and she will be his advocate if something happens to me. But I will tell you, the only thing that's terrible is with his, I guess, social service company, ETAS is who he has. And then he's got DPI, I can't remember what they are, for a job,
Okay.
which is not going very well. My son's not having, I mean, he just doesn't want the guy to call. You know, he didn't even have to come over.
Yeah.
But all of those people, Social Security, Missouri Health Net, we signed waivers, or he signed waivers for me to be able to speak, and they will not let me speak unless he's on the phone and tells them, this is Deborah Conklin, and I give her the right to speak on my behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sad to me.
It is, you know, especially if they have the waivers. I don't know if they have to update them every year or whatever. I know, like, for Social Security, I'm still his rep payee, because that's the area he doesn't want to.
So
Yeah, that's the area he doesn't want to make decisions, right? He doesn't want to make doctor's appointments on his own. Basically, that's what I used Guardianship for, was to make doctor's appointments for him, because everything else, you know,
right.
I didn't make those decisions for him. But having those calls with Social Security, because he doesn't know. But recently, we had to talk to the tax people in Topeka, and he had to get on the phone and say, yes, you have permission to talk to Stephen Coleman. But hey, that could have been Ryan and me on the phone. Like, how do they even know that that's Matthew, right? Because they're like, well, what's your Social Security number? And I'm like, okay, I'm the one giving them the Social Security number, right? Like, that could have even not been Matthew. But yeah, they should, I don't know Missouri either, but from a federal standpoint, everything, I mean, they should release some information,
Well,
like.
We did sign one.
Right, and that should be
when
good
I
enough.
tried to contact his case manager, I don't know what they're called right now.
Yeah.
And I know the turnover rate is absolutely ridiculous. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
And that's what my sister's
Same
doing
here in
right now.
Kansas, yeah.
It's a difficult job, and I couldn't do it myself.
Yeah.
But I do envy the people who take the time to do it. But I mean, he has a new case manager that she's never even met. We've never
Yeah,
met.
it's funny you say that about Kansas VR. He's been getting services since he graduated college, and his VR person just reached out. Let's see, that's been a little over 2 years ago, and saying, "Oh, we need to set up a meeting." And I'm like, "Where have you been? Like, these services suck." But I feel bad for them too.
Right.
They need a master's degree, and then they want to start them out at $38,000 a year.
Yes. No.
So
I live it every day with my sister drive home from work.
yeah,
So I know
I'm
I know
sure.
how hard it is. And I have to explain to him because he gets anxious and then he gets upset, you know, well, why is she contacting me now? I haven't talked to her in
A year. Why?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, you have to understand, oh great, I got a new one.
Yeah.
You know, and I told him, you have to understand, Aunt Kelly explained to you this is how it's gonna work. It's just that they have a hard job.
Yeah.
So we have to be patient with them. But the only thing as a parent of, my son's 27, as a parent, it's difficult because if I email her for something, like I emailed her for diagnoses, and she said, oh, well, you have to call this person. Well, you guys should have a copy of everything. And as a parent, I should legally be able to have a copy of those. He's even
So
said,
he's released it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have patience to an extent until my patience runs out where his civil rights are being.
yeah,
So.
yeah, it was just.
Which again made it a little easier. His college story was another long story I could get into and talk about it. There was a long battle for that one too. So yes, Jay.
I think I know the answer to this question, but you know, when kids are graduating, and as parents, you're provided a lot of resources on, you know, that transition to college or whatever your kid's doing. Do they provide? It's probably district by district, but are there resources, parent training resources, to know what to expect? You know, guardianship, all that.
Actually, I do that. I have, and we have it up on the Lend YouTube page, transition resources and all that's available out there. So yes, I do a
The
session.
district isn't like, hey, Stephanie, why don't you go to this resource?
No, but I do go to support groups and have that conversation. I don't do deep dives into specific supports and resources that are available. But I give you the overview so that you know enough to go start asking questions, because that's what I didn't know. I didn't know enough, like we didn't know vocational rehabilitation paid for college until 2016 so he graduated high school in 2014. He went to Johnson County Community College. It was a horrific failure. And then we found out in 2016 that they paid for college, and then we're like, oh, he can go to his dream school. But
Does the district though provide that? I mean,
we did not. Well, let me tell you, they didn't even want to put college on his IEP.
yeah.
They wanted to put him in job. They just wanted him to have a job when he graduated. Something else that's very interesting, and I know we gotta wrap this up, but. I didn't know enough, but I was told when he was graduating, he could either enter the 18 to 21 program or he could graduate high school and walk with his friends. He could not do both. And I'm like, oh, he's walking with his friends, so we gave up the 18 to 21 program, which, I mean, later we found out that, one, that's not true, and two, 18 to 21 program wouldn't have benefited him at all anyways. But the fact that I was told to choose one or the other, it's crazy. Yeah. So there's lots of things there going back and forth. But no, again, there used to be transition counselors at every schools that would come to IEP meetings. They should be starting the transition conversation into IEPs like by the time they're 15. Honestly, it should be long before that, but at least at 15. And there should be transition coordinators, but when funding got cut, transition coordinators were one of the first ones cut. So yeah, they don't share that information. And it's sad because I get a lot of families who call me at 18 and go, now what? And I'm like, okay, are they on the IBD waiver wait list? What's that? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's that? You've been in high school all this time, right? Like, are they on this? What's that? And so, no. I wish, that's where I am doing what I'm doing, because I don't want families to be behind the 8 ball, and I want to get out information as much as I can. So, with that, I will say, don't forget to fill this form out. And let me know how the session went. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, and if you want, I don't know how to get this back up there. If I take this out. There's a, oh well, jeez. I'll come on the job. So, I know,
That's you.
So, class of 2014.
Was when I graduated high
That's
school.
when I graduated too.
yeah, you guys are the same age. That means you both are going to be older than me this year.
I just
Are
turned
you taking these or
29.
just leave that?
I don't know. Why don't you collect them and I'll give them to Sean?
All right, yeah, I got mine.
I filled mine out online.
Oh, thank you.
Good.
All right.
Did you send me pictures?
I will.
Thank you.
Not very soon.
No, he's got a job thing going on at the library, so.
Mine till 12:30.
Oh, yes, he's staying till lunch so he can get fed.
By the way,
Sorry, all my stuff's everywhere.
Mom,
Yeah, yeah. No, I did not. Because I couldn't get into the bug. Good luck, guys. You should be able to. You can go to Katie's and see. You know what's fun? What? Oh, I could have been sitting here
I
like
scoped
this.
out the room. I scoped out the room at like 7:15 this morning.
I'm telling you.